educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank you for tuning in today. I have a wonderful individual who is going to talk to us about being impactful and creating a better version of ourselves, right? He is the CEO of Next Level University, a global top 10 100 podcast, over 1,500 episodes recorded, over 900,000 listeners, over 160 countries. You know, this is something that those of us that are in podcast world, you know, these are some very, very incredible numbers. But, you know, some things that can hinder us in achieving the best version of ourselves. We have things that overcome or situations that we have to overcome, such as for him, he had to endure his father's passing at such a very young age. He had to overcome a car crash at a young age himself, only in his 20s. And he was questioning whether or not what was going on in his life, the choices that he had to make, and just the direction of making a decision on how to change his trajectory, if you will, forever. So although he had a successful career in corporate America, he had to make the hard decision to start a business. And a lot of us, sometimes we don't know how to get over that hump. And this gentleman, he's been able to do that. So I bring none other to you today, Alan. Alan, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the intro. Maurice, I'm excited. You seem like a great positive energy and a positive light in the lives of others. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Alan. So question for you. So how would someone become very productive and effective version of themselves?
So we do trainings at NLU, Next Level University, and that's one of them. How to become the most productive and effective version of yourself. Mm-hmm. And the key there is of yourself. I don't want anyone to try to be like me. I don't think anyone should try to be like you. I think there are certain principles that apply to all of us, but we're all sort of unique. And so how do you become the most productive, effective version of yourself? First, that starts with self-awareness. There's really three main components. Number one is self-awareness, understanding yourself, understanding what you love about yourself, understanding what you don't like about yourself, understanding the things that you can change, understanding the things that maybe you shouldn't change or maybe even can't change about yourself. So that the first one's self-awareness. The second one, and I use the GPS as an analogy. Yeah, so the GPS needs three things. It needs a destination address. It needs a current address, accurate current address, which is self-awareness in this analogy. And then it needs updated data and information about the terrain, the mountains, the lakes, the ponds, the roads, the highways, because otherwise you'll just drive into a lake if it has the wrong data. And so a lot of us go through life thinking, like when I was a kid, I went into life thinking, okay, well, my parents know the terrain and they know the destination. They know the self-awareness, and you grow up and you learn. And now I'm 35. I joke. I hope to hit puberty at 36.
That's funny.
I look 15, but not really good, but also not so much as a business coach.
Right.
It's like my business coach looks 12, so that's really helpful for me.
Right.
No, but anyways, so the GPS analogy is you think that you're going through life with an accurate destination. You think you're going through life with an accurate current location, and you think you're going through life with accurate terrain. And in reality, we're all sort of driving around semi-directionless. And what I try to do to be the most productive, effective version of yourself is just get you to kind of stop that treadmill and really try to check in on where you are really. You know, what is your real level of self-belief? What is your real level of self-worth? You know, what is your real level of awareness of self, of other people, of the world, self-awareness? And then based on that true self, honest self, where do you really want to go? What do you really want to achieve? What's a goal that's not an ego goal? It's like more of a calling. Instead of, I want to do that, that would be really nice. It's more like, this is what I feel I'm supposed to do. More of a calling. And then the how comes after that. And the how is
Mhm.
the train. You know, how do I make effective decisions and be strategic toward that goal
Mhm.
that's in alignment with my core values? And that's how someone becomes the most productive and effective version of themselves. And, I just condensed a hour-long workshop into 4 minutes.
So let me ask you this, in another word of saying how productive, how do we understand what our real potential is? Because sometimes some people look at them and say words, they mean something different, so how would someone understand what is their true potential?
So I think we all have a different potential.
Mm-hmm.
I often say this we do monthly meetups and we have a book club every week. And I often say every single one of you in this room is better than me at something. Every single one of you in this room has higher potential than me in something. I use my business partner as an example. So my business partner, his name's Kevin. He's, 5'5", naturally gifted at bodybuilding, very, very strong, builds muscle easily. I was tall, lanky, ectomorph. And I often say long distance run, no matter how hard he tries to beat me, I'm going to crush him,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I've got these giraffe legs, 6'2", mostly legs. And no matter how hard I work in the gym, I'm probably not going to be stronger than him. Now, is it possible for me to get stronger and him to get faster? Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have different potential. And so what I think sucks is when we lie to ourselves about our true potential.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are naturally gifted at mathematics. Some of us are naturally gifted at science. Some of us are naturally gifted at writing and arithmetic and art and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think life is how do I figure out what my gifts are, my true potential, and how do I cultivate the character that can actually sustain maximizing that? And then obviously shore up your weaknesses, because here's the problem. Every strength comes with a huge blind spot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If confidence is a strength, arrogance is probably a weakness.
Mm.
And maybe if you don't think you're that smart, maybe you make up for that with humility, and that's a huge strength. But maybe you're also subservient sometimes, more than you should be, or don't stand up for yourself or whatever. So every strength comes with this huge blind spot and this huge weakness. And so you kind of have to lean into your strengths while shoring up your weaknesses so that we can all be sort of ambidextrous.
So I'm listening to you, and one of the things that I think we get caught up in as individuals, you said you're comparing yourself to your business partner, right? And so we get caught up in comparing ourselves to someone else. Now you're talking about the strengths and really understanding what that person is strong in versus myself. But a lot of times we want to compare apples to apples and not necessarily apples to pears. Like we are two totally different people, two different cultures, two different environments we grew up in. So we want to compare apples to apples. How would you suggest to someone to say, you know what, you're really not that particular apple, you're something else?
It's sort of like what the GPS does. Again, it looks at the building to the right and it looks at where you are in comparison. So instead of comparing, Kevin and I from the place of I'm envious of him or he's envious of me, of I wish XYZ, it's more objective. And this is difficult because we're emotional beings. And I've always been sort of mathematical and scientific. So for me, objective comparisons, I think in numbers. So I'll give you an example. This is a little bit of a weird one, but I remember looking this up. Canada, I have a lot of clients in Canada, team members in Canada. And Canada is like slightly larger than the US in terms of geography, but it only has 37 million people. So if you're going to buy land, go to Canada. But if you don't like the cold, definitely don't. And so to answer your original question, it's how do you take in data and not let it negatively affect you? In other words, every time you take in data comparison, which by the way is necessary, you go buy a home. How do you know what the home is worth? You compare to the comps. Comps is a real estate term. I've coached many real estate people in real estate. The comps are how did other homes sell in that area? So you can't most people say, well, don't compare. That's not the answer. You have to compare. You have to understand, compare yourself at 16 to yourself at 20 to yourself at 25 to yourself at 35. How do you know you're worth more money? How do you know how much you're worth? Economics, compare minimum wage, understand. So we all got to know where we fit. But the problem is most of us either compare only to the ceiling or only to the floor.
That's a good point.
If you have high self-belief, you most likely compare only to the ceiling, and it crushes your self-worth because you're striving but never arriving. But if you have low self-belief, you most likely are only comparing to your environment, and you might be a big fish in a small pond, right? And so there's 5 million podcasts. You have 3 of them. I have 3 of them as well.
Right.
And so I think we're about 90% of all podcasts. I'm kidding.
Right.
We're 6 out of 5 million.
Right.
And how do you know that our podcasts are valuable? You have to compare. But if you're not comparing apples to apples, it can be destructive instead of constructive. So how does someone do that? You have to not only compare, but be conscious of it and intentional of it. And you have to try to be as objective as you can, knowing that you can never fully be subjective.
So you know what? You stated Canada versus United States. So when we try to look apples to apples, because you're comparing how many people are in one country versus another, but one of the things that we have to consider is how much of Canada is actually habitable. There's some other parts to this that everyone does not consider, right?
That's a great point.
So when we think about those pieces and only worried about Kevin's, he's a great bodybuilder versus you being a great runner. Well, what is it that's really, as you talk about being self-aware, sometimes we're not aware of just ourselves, but even that individual, what is their makeup? What is their background? So why isn't Canada have more population? Well, people can't live in it. So
it's much colder.
So I think those are some of the things that we as entrepreneurs or whoever it is, I think those are the things that we need to consider as we move forward, as you talk about looking at data.
Well, that's the layers of awareness, right? I mean, and that's where contemplation comes in. I think contemplation might be one of the most underrated things in the human condition. You got to contemplate things. Even right there. I said the Canada-US, and you went, well, a lot of the northern parts are really inhabitable or non-habitable. Fascinating.
Right.
I hadn't thought of that. Thank you for sharpening me. I sharpen you. This is good. Now we both leave smarter.
Right.
And hopefully that smarter leads to better decision-making, and you and I don't move north. Right? I'm kidding. But that's the playfulness with this, which is life is this constant, when we're kids, we think our teachers know everything. And they definitely don't, right? And then you get smarter and stronger and older and wiser and more experience, more reflection, more contemplation. And then you realize that most people don't know half as much as you thought, but maybe that's because you know more than you thought. And so we all kind of have to re-watch the movie of our own life, and the layers of understanding get deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you want to get to a new level in life, this is what we say at Next Level University. If you want to get to a new level in your life, first you have to get to a deeper understanding.
Wow. So with that deeper understanding, are we able to unlock the things that we need to get to our peak performance, to get to that top or whatever it is?
100%. So the peak performance, a lot of people say, well, what does that mean? I like the idea of the mountaintop. So we have this journal that has a star at the top of the mountain. And this is sort of a mountain. And it's a metaphor for, number one, make sure you're climbing your own mountain. Not everyone wants to climb Mount Everest.
Right.
Some people do, and they're crazy. No, I'm kidding. But you don't have to climb someone else's mountain. And if you do, it's not going to be fulfilling. But in this journal, it takes your big dreams, breaks it down into annual goals, breaks it down into quarterly goals, breaks it down into inch pebbles. But when it comes to how to get to the next level, you need to get to a deeper understanding. Peak performance is how do you get to the peak of your own performance? How do you get to the peak of your own potential? And what is that? And so what I try to explain, and I want to also, I'm a computer engineer, and I want to make this very clear to everybody. There's 4 modalities of thinking, and I won't go deep down the rabbit hole here, but I just surpassed my 5,000th coaching session probably 3 or 4 months ago.
Nice.
And I track all these numbers, and anyone who's out there listening to this, it's very clear that I'm a numbers thinker, right? I'm data-driven numbers. So there's 4 modalities of thinking, and if you're not my modality, you might have shut off by now. But I encourage you not to, because that's how we become ambidextrous. I think of like right arm, right leg, left leg. We're going to be more capable at sports if we use all four of them. And so all four of us have all four modalities, but I'll give you them now. Okay, so the first one is math. I say it's the first one. It's not the first one. It just happens to be mine. So sorry for being egocentric here. But it's the rarest. I think it's the statistically rarest to think in numbers. And I never understood. I didn't know, like, why don't I get along easily with people? I don't understand. Why do I think everyone's irrational? They're not irrational. I'm hyper rational. Right? Who knew? It's like, I remember Kev one time, he's like, well, what if they're not unintelligent? What if you're just super intelligent? I'm like, right? It's like really funny, but it's hard for me to think that because I don't think I'm that smart. It's like this weird thing. Okay, so number one is numbers, and it's the rarest. And most people don't think in numbers. If you do, you know it, and you struggle to get along with humans. I'm kidding. Okay, number two, and you resonate deeply with me, which means if there's 100 people listening, about 3 of you like me. Okay, number two is words. This is the one that's super common. So most people think in words. They think in conversations. Number 3 is energy. This one's also pretty rare. They think in energy. They feel in energy. They're much more connected to their intuition. They are more spiritual typically. That one was my tough one. I didn't think in energy. High vibe, low vibe. Good energy, negative energy. Even at the beginning when I first met you, I was like, okay, good energy. Nice. But I never used to say that. I was in toxic environments. I didn't know the energy was bad. I had no idea, right? Emilia, my beautiful girlfriend's the one who thinks in energy and brought me up. I'm like, numbers. Huh. All right. And then the fourth one is pictures. Thinking in images. So imagination, right? And that. So those are the main 4. We all have all 4. We all do all 4. But we all have one main one that we just don't understand why other people don't think that way. And we all have one that's typically a weakness. For me, energy was the weakness. I didn't think in energy at all. And as I've come up in that, it's been like, whoa, opening my eyes to a whole bunch of stuff. And so if you're out there and yours is words, you probably are a strong communicator. You probably get along easily with others. You're probably easily likable. If yours is numbers, you probably think everyone else is irrational and unintelligent. You don't know why you don't get along with people. You probably have high self-belief because you can reverse engineer finish lines easily, but you are socially weird and awkward. So you probably have low self-worth. Now, again, I didn't just figure this out from a book. I just have coached so many people with so many different modalities. And this is the last piece of this, which is if what you wanted was what you needed, you'd already have it. And that's where peak performance lives, to get back all the way to your original question. Peak performance is shoring up your weaknesses, identifying your strengths, understanding that what you want and what you need are often 2 different things. And the gold is buried where you least want to dig, which is usually the people who have tons of professional development. They don't want to go internally and get a therapist. So the people who want coaches probably need a therapist. That was me. The people who want therapists, honestly, you need a coach. You got to get some dialed in. You got to get some goals. You got to get professional development. And so we are all righty or lefty, you know, and we often avoid the ambidextrousness, which is a new word, right. That would get us to our dreams.
So in this, I'm listening to you. How do we get to this place of fulfillment and happiness? Because sometimes, you know, because you're talking about some things that can really pull us down, you know. So like you said, energy, I can understand you because at one point in time, math and science was my thing, right? You know, so I can understand that. I have an analytical mindset. My wife says I have a whole lot of words in my head. You know, I always want to get it out. And
well, you are a podcaster, so that's good.
Right. And like you said, you know, from an energy perspective, you know, I think I have pretty decent energy. I like to interact with individuals. You know, I feed off of other people's energy. So I kind of get that idea. But I'm not sure which one's my weakness. Probably all of them at the same time, to be honest. But, you know, but from that, because we try to look at ourselves, we lose track of what's keeping us happy because we get caught up in where we're failing, where we're coming up short, especially when we're comparing ourselves. So how would you suggest for someone to, understand the difference between fulfillment and happiness and also keep those levels up in whatever they're trying to achieve.
Yeah. So I appreciate the question and the context of the story that I give for the fulfillment thing. And my business partner, Kev, said, Alan, I didn't think about fulfillment once until I met you. I was like, oh, we gave this whole workshop once on fulfillment. And then we get to the end of it. We do these experience reviews after. He's like, yeah, it was really good. The only problem is we didn't define fulfillment. We didn't define it because I think we get these blind spots. I've been contemplating fulfillment my entire adult life. So I can't imagine not thinking from that frame. And he's like, next time we really should define it. So let me do that now, learning from my mistakes. Fulfillment, if you Google the definition, there's a bunch that come up, but it's essentially developing your own unique character in a way that's in alignment with your core values that makes you feel good about yourself, self-esteem type of thing. My definition is the soul's recognition of alignment with your highest calling. Now, the happiness thing has bothered me ever since I was a kid because we're pursuit of happiness. You're supposed to be happy. What do parents want for the kids? They want to be happy. We actually did a group coaching session on this last night. And there's that John Lennon story where the teacher says, what do you want to be when you grow up? And John Lennon said, happy. And the teacher said, you didn't understand the assignment. And he said, no, you don't understand life. Now, powerful story. I don't even know if it's true. Maybe it's a meme on the internet, right? Who knows?
Right.
But what I do know is that we are all after happiness, but we never defined it. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what it feels like. We don't, it's kind of esoteric. Like, are you happy? Well, yeah. Happier than yesterday, maybe not as happy as I want to be. It's this weird sort of chasing butterflies situation. And so, and it's a pursuit. You never actually get there. So what I tried to do, I was in my early 20s. My mom said, why does intelligence matter so much to you? Which was weird because it's like, well, I thought that you told me engineering and be smart and academics and straight A's and all that stuff. So it was this weird thing. But she's like, why isn't it enough to just be nice? And back then I was in my early 20s. I was a little bit arrogant. And I said, I'm trying to figure out the formula to not end up old and miserable like everybody else.
Right.
Because I looked around and I playfully call my childhood the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Because I just didn't see anyone fulfilled. I saw no happy people. I mean, they hated their careers, hated their marriages, just really, drugs, alcohol, the whole nine.
Right.
And so I looked around and went, nope. No, not me. Not me, sir. I got to do something about this. And so that was my answer. I'm going to go figure out the formula. I was a math guy. And I did. I finally think I figured it out, which, by the way, was in my 30s. So it took me a while. But now I have this pyramid of fulfillment, and we do it in our group coaching program and all that stuff. But the simplest formula, I wrote a blog on this recently, is 3 things. What we say happiness is actually 3 things. Joy, which is being in the moment, enjoying the moment. So I'm enjoying this right now. I'm in joy right now. You and me, we're vibing. This is good.
Right.
Okay. Then you've got pleasure. Now, pleasure, I think, is the trap. Pleasure is drugs, alcohol, porn, donuts, all the stuff that feels good in the moment, but is never fulfilling. I often use the analogy of, and forgive me if this is crude, but sleeping with someone who you don't actually care for, just for pleasure, versus like a deeply meaningful marriage of someone you love, right? One of them can be fun, but it's never fulfilling. The other one is deeply fulfilling and meaningful, and that's the difference between pleasure and fulfillment. And that's the third one. So the first one's joy, the second one is pleasure, and the third one is fulfillment. And what I didn't know growing up is that I grew up in what I now refer to as a pleasure-centered paradigm, which is this deep belief, and it's unconscious. No one's consciously thinking about this because we weren't taught any of this in school. But I grew up in a paradigm of life's about fun. I used to call it boats and BS. Boats, snowmobiles, fun, alcohol, drugs, partying, ski trips, and blah, blah, blah. And again, I don't mean to be unkind because all that stuff's fun or whatever, but what I didn't understand is how detrimental that was for growth, contribution, and fulfillment. And so I have now after that car accident that you talked about earlier, I had my quarter life crisis and I flipped from a pleasure-centered paradigm that I grew up in to entirely growth paradigm. If it's going to help me become better, if it's going to help me learn, grow, stronger, smarter, I'm in. And anyone listening will make that's obviously clear. And so at this stage, I realized fulfillment is the one we're missing. You know, everyone says be present, enjoy yourself. Okay, fair. Everyone says, well, you know, the purpose of life is to have fun. It's to have a good time. I do not agree. I do not agree. That's like me forcing you to laugh.
Right. Yeah.
If I say a joke that's funny, you'll laugh as a byproduct. But fake laugh, I can't force you to laugh. I think that fulfillment is a byproduct of deeply meaningful work, deeply meaningful growth, deeply meaningful relationships. And I think that that's where we got lost.
Really?
Because we're chasing pleasure at the expense of fulfillment. And that's what I did. And so I don't want to project on anyone, but I flipped the script. I was successful from the outside in pre-car accident. After my car accident, I had all that regret because my father had passed away in a car accident. And I thought that could be it. And I flipped the script and I now focus from the inside out. I used to achieve at the expense of fulfillment, tons of friends, tons of partying. And now I focus on growth and contribution, and I focus on fulfillment, and then achievement is a byproduct.
Alan, I thank you for sharing that. You said a mouthful there. You know, you really did. So Alan, let me ask you this. Because of time, you know, where can someone reach out to you so you can help them through their process of understanding happiness and fulfillment? Where could they reach out to you? So
Alan at nextleveluniverse.com, spelled just like it sounds, ALAN at nextleveluniverse.com. You can email me. Just please provide context. Obviously, we all get a lot of spam email. So if you provide context, say, hey, I heard you talk about XYZ. I'm happy to help. We can jump on a free call. Also, we have a podcast called Next Level University, and we talk about these kinds of things. So that's really what it's about. It's how do we get your compass reoriented toward your true self and toward your true potential. And that's what we do. I mean, we have 22 departments, 20-person team at this stage. We've got a charity where we help young boys without fathers because we were both young boys without fathers. Right. Kevin's father left when he was young as well.
Wow.
And we do this work, and we help people grow holistically in the direction of their goals and dreams. And that doesn't mean you have to climb Mount Everest or change the world. It just means you can make tomorrow better than today. And you can go to the podcast, you can email me, or you can go to nextleveluniverse.com. The person who has nextleveluniversity.com is trying to charge way too much money. So I said, you know what? Next Level Universe.
Right.
it's the whole thing.
That's the way to get around that.
Yeah.
Nice, Alan. But thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated this. This was a positive, constructive, positive energy. And as far as things that I do in the world, some things are draining and some things are energizing. This was definitely on the energizing side. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate it. But, you know, before we go, though, I got to ask you the question, man. I got to ask you the would you rather question.
Right.
Would you rather choose a 3 doors or a fork in the road?
So we talked about this. I want more options. No, I'm kidding. My soliloquy was, you know, 1 option is not even a choice. 2, aka a fork in the road, is a dilemma. And I'm a big fan of choices and freedom. So I choose 3 doors because anything 3, that's an actual choice. It's not a dilemma, it's a choice. And I'm all about making choices. So
Nice. I appreciate that, Alan. I appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate you sharing and giving us all of these little nuggets today.
Thank you so much, Maurice. This was a very positive experience. Keep it up, man.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And continue to listen to That Will Never Work podcast.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?